welcome back. Thanks for being here. And today's tutorial is on this backpack by ISY or ISY SEW. I'm not sure exactly how it's pronounced, but it's ISY SEW. And she reached out to me to see if I could do a tutorial on this awesome new backpack that she created, and I said yes. I'm sure you guys have been seeing it out on social media. I've been a little late to the game. I finally got to it, and I was actually waiting for this fabric to come in so I can make my son a backpack using this pattern and using this fabric that I had pre-ordered. So that being said, the fabric is a cotton canvas. The interior and the exterior are both a cotton canvas. And I did interface them with a heavy interfacing. What I ended up doing this time, which is a little bit different, is I used EB Fuse by Emmeline Bags. I wanted to try something different. I had not tried out their interfacing yet, so I did it on this bag. So what I ended up doing was on the Gusset, both front and back panels, and I believe maybe the pockets, I can't remember. I used the heavy EB Fuse, which is kind of a Decoville heavy, no, not Decoville heavy, a Decoville light. It's kind of like a Decoville light. It's not exactly a Decoville light, I would say. I did like working with it. It did give it a nice structure, but I wouldn't say it's Decoville light. It is more affordable than Decoville light. So, you know, up to you on what you want to use. I do like it. I do feel it has its uses. I probably would have preferred using Decoville light on the front and the back panels and on the gusset, but this is all fine. I like the way it turned out. It still gives it that structure that I was looking for, and I did not want the bag to be crazy structured where you couldn't like squish it. This is a school backpack for my son, so I didn't want it to be really structured. So I did omit the foam out of the front panel. It is on the back panel and on the straps. My straps are different than the ones in the pattern. I do explain that and what I did end up using for the straps. So I did change up the straps and I added a slip pocket on the interior, but that is it. And then I omitted the foam out of the front panel and the top and bottom gussets. I did not use any foam. So that is basically it. The bag doesn't have a lot of interfacing, just foam, and I omitted most of it. And then the interior, you do have a zippered pocket right there. Just hard to see. There we go. A zippered pocket, which I did an overlay on. So I do this pocket a little differently than in the pattern as well. This pocket is there, just done a little differently. I did an overlay and put it in the same spot, basically. And then my slip pocket is on the other side. In the pattern, there is no slip pocket. This panel is just one plain panel, which is great. You can do whatever you like on that panel. You have lots of room for different modifications. This bag has written instructions for binding and for a regular birth bag. I did binding. So there's my binding right there. I did a black binding on mine to kind of go with the overall look of the bag. And I did a double pull zipper for the main zipper. And then I did webbing for the grab handle and webbing for my connectors. And that was it. That is it. There's very little hardware in this bag. So there are, what, 3 zipper pulls and 3 because I used 2 on the main compartment and 1 on the inside. And that was it. That is all. Oh, there's a zipper in the back. I forgot about that one. There's a pocket on the back panel I completely forgot about. So there is a pocket on the back panel, which goes all the way across. And again, my lining is the same as my exterior. It's a cotton canvas. All right, that is it. That is all that is in this bag. I think it turned out really cute. There are 2 slip pockets in the front right here. So my son can put a water bottle in here or on the side pockets. So there are side pockets, 2 front slip pockets. There's a back zippered pocket, 1 zippered pocket on the interior, and then I added a slip pocket. Lots of pockets, lots of different options, lots of different things you can do to the bag to make it yours. It's a good size bag. It's a little on the big side for my son, just a little bit, but not bad at all. I think it's a great school bag size, and it's a little, I would say it's a good size on me. Other than that, I really enjoyed how this bag came together. It came together pretty easily. The directions are very well written, comes together wonderfully. There is no guessing as to what the pattern writer was trying to put out there. It's a very, very, very well written pattern. So if you give this bag a chance and sew it up, let me know down in the comments down below. And let's get started making this bag. I'm gonna go over all of the pattern pieces before we get started. And I figured I'd start off with the pattern pieces that are different to the pattern. The most obvious here are the straps. I did choose to do a different strap. And the reason for that is because I wanted a padded strap for my son. And the straps belong to the Mercury bag by Kerr Threads. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I don't know, I might be butchering it. Lauren from More Me Know did the same thing on her bag. She also has a YouTube tutorial on this bag, and she chose this exact strap for that bag. And when I saw that, I was like, perfect. I want to try that strap as well. My plan was to do a padded strap anyway, and so I'm gonna give it a whirl and see how it goes. So here I have 2 pieces cut out of my exterior and 2 pieces cut out of my lining. My exterior and lining are a cotton canvas, and the way that I interfaced these padded straps is I did a light woven interfacing on both the exterior and the lining. They are interfaced with a light woven interfacing by Emmeline Bags. It is a new one interfacing to me, and I thought I'd give it a try on this bag. And then I used foam. Here I have some triangle pieces for my connectors. And then I am doing a zipper overlay on my zippered pocket inside the bag. And so the zipper overlay I'm going to use is this zipper overlay by Carolina Little Stitches. And so I have been dying to use these since I got them, and they come in 3 different sizes, and they come with a bunch of different ends that you can use. So it's like a little puzzle, and you can make any shape that you would like that obviously it comes with. So it comes with, here's how they look. So there's a 9-inch zipper overlay, there's a 6-inch zipper overlay, and this is the 7.5, and I'm using the 7.5, and I'm using this end on, I don't know what you would call that, but that's the end I'm using. So that is my piece for my zipper overlay, and I used my exterior fabric, and I interfaced that with the heavy woven interfacing as well. Okay, and next, a slip pocket on the interior. The interior has a zippered pocket, and I wanted to do a slip pocket like I always do. I love to have 1 zippered pocket, 1 slip pocket, and so I'm adding a slip pocket, and all I did was use the bottom half of the pattern. I do this a lot. I use the bottom half of the pattern, and that's what I'm going to use as my slip pocket. So I cut 2 pieces out of that, and I interfaced it with a light woven interfacing. Okay, so now I'm going to go over all the other pattern pieces that are part of the pattern and all have pattern pieces for. Here I have the back panel, and the back panel is cut into different pieces. So there are 2 different pieces for the back panel. There's a bottom portion and the top portion. And the reason for that is because there'll be a zipper right here. So this is the back panel and it'll have a zippered pocket. There is a top and a bottom portion for your back piece. And I interfaced my exterior fabric with a light woven interfacing on the back panel, because on the back panel I am going to use foam, and this is the only place besides the padded straps that I'm using foam. So the padded straps and the back panel are the only places I'm using foam. Okay, here I have the front panel, and the front panel is cut out of my exterior, and I interfaced the front panel with the heavy woven interfacing and not the light, because there won't be any foam on this panel. So I went with the heavy on this one. And then you'll need 2 cuts of your lining, and my lining is not interfaced at all. All right, here I have the bottom gusset, which I have 1 piece cut out of my exterior and 1 piece cut out of my lining. And my exterior is interfaced with the heavy, and the lining is not interfaced at all. Zippered gusset, you will need 2 cuts of your exterior and 2 cuts of your lining. And my lining is not interfaced at all. Exterior is interfaced with the heavy interfacing. Here I have the front slip pockets, and I have 2 pieces of my exterior and 2 pieces out of my lining. My exterior and my lining are both interfaced the same way with a light woven interfacing. Pattern pieces we have here, this is the side pockets on the exterior part of the bag, and I'm using my lining fabric for that. And I have 4 pieces cut out for my side pockets, and my side pockets are not interfaced at all, so no interfacing on my side pockets. Here I have my zippered pockets. You will need 2 for your interior zippered pocket, which is a little bit shorter than the 2 that you will need for the exterior pocket. And here I have the strap cover, and you can see my selvage here, but the strap cover gets folded. The raw ends get folded into the middle, so you will not see that, so I wasn't too worried about it. And then here we have our zippered ends, and you only need 2 pieces of that, and I cut my zipper ends out of my exterior fabric, and they are not interfaced either. All right, I will start with what's not in the pattern because I'm doing the padded straps. So here I have 2 pieces of 1-inch webbing cut at 20 inches. I will probably adjust this quite a bit depending on how much I will need for my son. He's not very big, he's in 1st grade. So I will adjust it. I just cut them at 20 inches to give myself plenty of room to work with. Here I have the top strap, so the grab handle, I don't know what you call this. It would be the grab handle at the top of the bag. So I used webbing for this. And then I've got 2 pieces of the 1-inch webbing as well, cut to 5 inches each, and these are going to go on my lock sliders. I think that's what you call these. These are little plastic slider lock, I don't know, they're in like most school bags, and that's what I chose to go with today. So I have 2 of those, and then I also have this cord, which is a micro cord, but I'm going to be tying these to the ends of the zippers so it's easier to pull and add a little bit of color. All right, so those are the pieces not part of the pattern. Okay, and the rest that you'll need are some zippers. There's a 20-inch zipper, a 10.5-inch zipper, and a 10-inch zipper. 3, and then you'll need some zipper pulls. I have, what, 4 zipper pulls here, because 2 are going to go on my main zipper, and then 1 for each zippered pocket. And then I am going to sneak in my little woven label. He did not want me to put a tag on his bag, so I am going to sneak in a pink woven label, I know, into a pocket where you can't see it. So yeah, he'll be surprised. He can't take it out once it's in there. So that is what you will have and what you will need to make this bag. So let's get started. And I almost forgot, you'll need some binding because I'm doing the binding method, which I forgot to mention. There are two options for this bag. You can either birth the bag or do binding, and I of course am doing binding because that's my preferred method. We're gonna start with our front slip pocket, so grab your exterior and lining pieces for your front slip pocket and some clips. So we're going to put these right sides together and we are going to clip these together. Right, and once you have those clipped, you're going to take this to the machine and you're going to sew along the straight edges only at a 3/8 seam allowance on both pockets. Once you have those stitched, we're going to go ahead and get a pair of scissors and trim down the seam allowance to a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once you have trimmed down your seam allowance, go ahead and flip these right side out and push out your corners. Okay, so once you have gotten your corners pushed out, you want to make sure those are pushed out really well. And then you want to flatten the seam and go and press at a iron if you have material that can be ironed. If not, try to roll this seam the best you can and flatten it out. I gave my pockets a nice press, and now I'm going to take this to the machine and we're going to top stitch along this top slanted edge on both pockets at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance just along this slanted edge. Alright, I've gone ahead and pressed my pockets nicely, and now we're going to need the front panel. So here I have the front panel and my two pockets, the ones we just got done pressing. So we're going to line up these pockets along the bottom raw edge of the front panel. We're going to do both pockets, and you're going to need some clips. Looks pretty good, and then we're going to clip these pockets in place. Alright, I have the pockets clipped in place. I know it's kind of hard to see because it kind of blends in with my front panel, so the pockets blend in. That was kind of the point, so then that way it all kind of looks the same in the front. I really wanted to showcase this fabric because it's so cute and my son absolutely loves it, so I didn't want to cover it up. Alright, so now we're going to take this to the machine and we're going to baste around the raw edges, and then we're going to sew down the middle of the pockets on both sides about an 1/8 of an inch away from the center. So the pocket opens up right here, and we're going to stitch both pockets down on each side about an 1/8 of an inch away from the seam, and then baste along the raw edges on both sides of our pockets and at the bottom. Alright, so the front pockets are now stitched down. So your front panel is now done, and we will set this aside. Alright, now we are going to prep our back zipper. So the zipper that's on the back of the bag. So you'll need your 10.5 inch zipper, and I've gone ahead and added my zipper pull already and ironed my zipper to make sure it's nice and straight to get any wrinkles out of it. I'm also going to go ahead and burn the ends of my zipper tape. And now we're going to grab our zipper ends and we're going to turn them right sides together. So flip your zipper tab right sides together on top of the zipper tape and clip in place. Okay, so our zipper tabs are now clipped in place, and you want to make sure that you align the raw edges of your zipper tape and your zipper tab. And also the zipper tabs are going to be a little bit wider depending on the size of your zipper tape, because zipper tape comes in different sizes. So my zipper tab is a little bit wider than my zipper tape, but that's okay. Once we sew this down, then you can trim it down to the size that you need for your zipper. And we're going to stitch this down on each end, each raw end at a 3/8 seam allowance, and then we're going to pull back our zipper tab, press the zipper tab back, and then we're going to top stitch along this edge right here on the zipper tab on both sides. The zipper is now done and prepared for installation on the back panel. So grab your back panel pocket pieces. So you'll have 2 of those. And then your back panel top and bottom piece. And then you'll need your pattern piece. And we're going to set these aside for now and work with just the back panel bottom and zipper. Alright, so for this step you'll need some double-sided sticky tape if you're going to use it. If not, just some pins or clips will work. So what we're going to do is we're working with the bottom back panel piece, and make sure you have found your centers. I already have. And I'm going to find my centers on my zipper to help me install it centered and straight. Alright, so I have my centers marked on my zipper. And I like my pockets to close to the left. So I'm going to make sure that my pocket is closing to the left, opens to the right, and then I'm going to flip my zipper down. So I'm going to align this top raw edge of my zipper along this top raw edge of the bottom back panel piece. So I'm going to grab some double-sided sticky tape. I have 1/8 inch here. If you don't want to use double-sided sticky tape, or your machine doesn't like it, or you prefer clips, go ahead and use what works for you. Alright, I've removed the backing and I'm going to align my centers and then finish lining up my zipper with that top raw edge of my panel. Alright, so that's aligned, and now we're going to take this to the machine and we're going to baste this zipper on at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Alright, so I've gone ahead and basted on the zipper, and I did baste it on backwards. So if you saw me in the video putting the zipper with the zipper pull on the right side, I did. I ended up ripping it out, fixing it, and having the zipper on the left because I want my zipper to close to the left and open to the right. So now go ahead and grab one of your zipper pockets and lay that right side down on top of the zipper and the panel and line up the raw edges. So instead of clipping, I'm going to use double-sided sticky tape, and you want to line up this raw edge along with this raw edge, and then we are going to sew this at a 3/8 seam allowance. Alright, so I'm going to line up the raw edge of my pocket with the raw edge of that zipper. Alright, my pocket is now lined up along the raw edge, and this is what you should have. Your zipper is sandwiched in between your back bottom panel and your zipper pocket. So I'm going to move my zipper out of the way and move it to the center, and then we're going to go stitch this down at the machine at a 3/8 seam allowance along this top raw edge. Okay, we've sewn across the top at a 3/8 seam allowance, and now we're going to push or grab our zipper to pocket, pull it up, and we are going to press that pocket back behind the back panel. So now we're going to take this to the machine and we're going to stitch along this top edge at an 1/8 inch seam allowance. And if you need to, go ahead and bring this to an iron and press it nicely so it lays nice and flat before you go and do your top stitching. Alright, so we've done our top stitching, and now what we're going to do is grab our other pocket piece, which I have right here, and you're going to lay your pocket piece right side up on your workspace, just like this. And then you're going to grab this portion that we were just working on, and we're going to lay this raw edge of our zipper along the raw edge of our pocket piece. So I've peeled off the backing. I have a strip of double-sided sticky tape along the raw edge of my pocket piece. And now we're going to lay this raw edge of our zipper tape centered along that raw edge. Alright, so my pocket piece is now on there. Now we're going to go to the machine and we're going to baste this at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, so our pocket is now basted on, and now you want to grab your back top piece and you're going to lay that right side down. And if you haven't already found your centers on all your pieces, go ahead and do that. It makes the process a lot quicker and easier if everything's already marked. But if not, go ahead, find your centers so you can line up your centers. So I'm going to line up my centers here with my zipper because my zipper is marked. I had marked my zipper earlier. So I'm going to line up my centers. All right, my pocket is now lined up with the top raw edge, and now we're going to take this to the machine and we're going to stitch at a 3/8 seam allowance. All right, so now we have stitched this at a 3/8 seam allowance, and now we're going to flip this top portion up and we're going to press this seam really well, and then we're going to go to the machine and we're going to top stitch along this edge at an 1/8 inch seam allowance. All right, we have top stitched our top panel on, and now our back pocket, or our back panel, is almost done. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip up this bottom portion and we're going to flip it up and away, and it's going to reveal our pocket. So you want to, in the pattern it says to mark a 1-inch line, so we'll go ahead and do that. We could just eyeball it, and I'm going to mark a 1-inch line, and we're going to go to the machine and we are going to sew across this 1-inch line to close up our pocket. And then we're going to come back and we're going to trim the excess off and close up our pocket on the sides. All right, my pocket is now stitched closed. I'm going to grab some scissors and we're going to trim off the excess, probably down to about a 1/4 inch is fine. All right, and now we're going to flip down our bottom piece, and now we are going to stitch closed our pocket. So I'm going to start at the top and at a 1/4 inch just stitch down to close up the sides of our pocket. All right, so our pocket is now closed up on the sides and the bottom, just like that. And now we're going to trim off the excess fabric on the sides of our pocket here. Alrighty, our pocket is trimmed down, and now what you want to do is grab your pattern piece, or like I'm going to do, grab my actual front panel to make sure that our back panel is the same size as our front panel. I just have a little bit to trim off the top. So I'm just going to use a few clips to clip this on, and I'm going to cut away this top portion right here. I know it's hard to see. I have this just a tiny bit to cut off the top there to make sure that everything matches up. All right, so I have gone ahead and trimmed down this top portion now, and it matches up perfectly with my front panel. So now everything is all the same size. This pattern is very forgiving, and you may or may not have the same amount to cut off like I did. You might have a little bit more, you might have a little bit less. It's all dependent on the different types of fabrics that you might be using. So if you see that you have more or less than I do, that is fine. It's just go ahead and trim to make sure that they match. That is the only important part here. All right, so I'm going to set my zipper in the center here as I work so it stays out of my way. And we are going to set both of these panels aside. The next part of the pattern that we're going to be working on is prepping the back straps, doing your strap handle, and doing the strap cover and connectors. Here is my strap cover, which is what we're going to start with. All right, so here I have a ruler, marking tool, and some double-sided sticky tape. Strap cover, and we're going to flip this right side down, so you should be seeing the back side. And we are going to measure up from both the long raw edges. So the bottom and the top raw edge, the long portions, we're going to measure from that 1 inch. It says a 1/2 inch in the pattern because you're going to be folding right on that 1/2 inch line. I find it easier to just draw a 1 inch line and fold to that line. So I'm going to put my double-sided sticky tape on the outside of that line, and then we are going to fold in our raw edges to meet the line we drew, and that makes a 1/2 inch fold, which is the same thing the pattern is wanting you to do. I'm just drawing a 1 inch line versus a 1/2 inch line, mainly because this gives me a visual where to fold my raw ends to. I just find it easier this way rather than trying to get a perfect 1/2 inch fold by folding on the line, which would be right here. And then you're going to do the same on the other side. So now we have our back strap cover. So we're going to set this aside. Let's work on our strap connectors. So on our strap connectors, you are going to need your triangles, your webbing, and some clips. So grab one of your triangles and one of your pieces of webbing, and you're going to fold your triangle in half, right sides together. So fold that in half, right sides together. And then once you have that folded in half, grab one of your pieces of webbing and you're going to slip your webbing right into that fold so the triangle goes around the webbing. So you're encasing the webbing with the triangle. So you basically just put it in there right up against that fold. And we want to have our webbing sticking out of the top about a 1/2 inch. So I've got a ruler. Okay, so right there it's about a 1/2 inch. And I'm going to place some clips. All right, so just like that. And you want to make sure that that webbing is right up against that fold that we made. So do that to both straps. All right, once you have your connectors clipped, we are going to take this to the machine and we are going to sew across this top edge where the webbing is sticking out of. We're going to sew right across this top edge at a 3/8 seam allowance. When you are stitching this at the machine, make sure to back stitch over your webbing to secure your webbing, and we are not going to be sewing on this bottom end, only this top edge where the webbing, I cannot say that word today, is sticking out of the top. All right, so do that to both your strap connectors. So my 2 lines of stitching are now done, and now what we're going to do is that we're going to grab a pair of scissors. I've got a nice pair of sharp scissors here, and we're going to angle in right over the webbing, and we're going to cut out any extra fabric around the webbing. And this just reduces bulk. You don't have to do this. I was actually going to not do it, but then I was like, well, it's a little bulky. No reason to leave the bulk if you could just clip it out. So you want to clip around the webbing, not the rest of your seam allowance, but just around the webbing. And then you're going to flip your connector right side out, making sure this top corner is nice and poked out. Should come right to a point, especially if you clip away that seam allowance. It'll help bring that to a point pretty easily. And I'm going to place some clips and do this to the second connector. All right, so now what we're going to do is that we're going to take this to the machine and we are going to top stitch along all 3 edges at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And if you need to, continue to push out those seams to make sure you have nice straight edges. If you also need to take this to an iron to get it nice and flat, do that also if you have fabric that you can do that with. So let's go to the machine and top stitch at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance on all 3 edges. Once you've gotten your connectors top stitched, go ahead and clip off the little triangles that are left over or hanging off, and then set your connectors aside. Now we're going to move on to the padded strap, and I am doing a different strap from the bag like I've mentioned a few times. So this is going to be a bit different. I'm also not going to give any measurements I will give some, but not all, because this is part of another pattern. If you're wanting to make this padded strap, I do suggest that you purchase the pattern. It's a great pattern. I will have the link down in the description box below. So now I'm going to work on one padded strap at a time. So I'm gonna move these aside. Grab a ruler, marking pen, and some clips. And here I will give a measurement, and it's 2 inches from the bottom. I am going to mark a line on either side of the pad, or of the foam. Sorry, that sounds weird when you say pad, doesn't it? All right, and then I'm gonna do that on the second one as well. All right, I have my markings, and now what we're going to do is that I'm going to grab one of my other panels, and I'm going to leave it facing right side up, and I'm going to place the other side that has my foam right side down on top of that, so right sides facing each other. And I'm going to place clips to hold them in place, and you want to line up your raw edges. And I'm going to do this to both straps. My straps are now clipped together, and we're going to take this to the machine, and I'm not going to give the seam allowance, but we're going to sew from this marked spot all the way around the bottom to this marked spot. And you want to backstitch really well at the beginning and at the end, and you want to do that to both straps. And this is the only spot we are going to be sewing, just this bottom portion from one end to the other, backstitching well at the beginning and end. Alright, so on this next step, you're going to need a marking tool and a ruler. And I'm going to mark a 1-inch line from each raw end, from each raw side. So along these both sides, we're going to mark in 1 inch. So here is 1 inch. And it is going to be on the actual foam itself that you will be making this line. And you want to do this on both sides and on both straps. Our straps are now marked on both sides of our long ends of our straps. So now I'm going to take some double-sided sticky tape. I have 1/2 inch here. Lay your double-sided sticky tape along that mark that you made on the closest side to the raw edge. Not on the inside, but on the outside is what I'd say that is. So we're going to lay our double-sided sticky tape along that. And you're going to do this on all 4 sides. Alright, we have added double-sided sticky tape to both sides of the strap. And now what we're going to do is that we're going to go and take off the backing. Alright, I've removed the backing off one side. And what we're going to do is that we're going to take this raw end, because this is what you have. Okay? No, that's not right. I have gone ahead of myself. So we're going to ignore that part real quick, and what we're going to do is that we need to trim down our seam allowance. I completely forgot to do that. Alright, so you want to trim your seam allowance down just like that. Alright, once you have trimmed down your seam allowance, then do your double-sided sticky tape if you haven't done so already. And then we're going to take our raw ends, and this is what you should have. Your bottom is sewn and not the rest of it, okay? We're going to bring up these raw ends to meet our line. Alright, once you've gone and done one side, go ahead and do the other side, and do that with all sides of your straps. All of the edges are now folded in on both my straps, and if you were like me and laid double-sided sticky tape all the way down to down here like I did, because I did not trim my seam allowance first, I assumed it went all the way. It didn't. So just peel off the tape off that bottom. Now what we're going to do is that we're going to turn these out. So we're going to turn these rounded corners out, and I'm going to do that to both. Go give them a nice little press, and then we'll be back. I've given my straps a nice press to get a nice curve around the bottom of my straps. And now what we're going to do is that we're going to take these to the machine, and we're going to stitch along the raw edges, well actually along the entire thing at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, starting at the top, going all the way around and back up to the top. at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance from our ends on both. And I'm going to place a few clips just to keep this backside from shifting on me while I'm sewing. All right, let's go top stitch. All right, our straps are now top stitch, and I did do a 2 line of stitching. So, oh, and on one of my straps, as the first one that I sewed, my bobbin ran out right as I finished stitching. It was amazing. And I did catch that on camera, so I was pretty lucky. All right, so my straps are now done. We're gonna set them aside for a second. And now we're gonna grab our 2 smaller pieces of webbing, which are cut at about 5 inches each. And then whatever you are going to use as a locking something. All right, so I have these as what you typically find on a backpack. And you want to hold it where this way is the side up. And we are going to insert our webbing, come up from the bottom, and we're gonna go around this bar at the top. Yep, that's how you do it. Okay, so you wrap your webbing around that bar. So the way that I know I'm doing it right is that my little lock slider is pointing this direction, so to my left, and then the webbing goes up and around the bar right in the center there. So this part up here is on the top, and it's like a grippier section. That part does not have the webbing going around it. All right, so grab some double-sided sticky tape, and I'm just gonna take a piece of double-sided sticky tape, and I'm going to lay it right here, so like that. I'm going to lay my webbing. Just try to center it the best you can. It does not have to be perfect. And then the other half of your webbing goes on that. So now you have a little strap, just like that. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other one. So I hold it like this. It's facing to the left. Grab my webbing, go up from underneath and over that bar, and then we're going to grab some double-sided sticky tape, place it in the center or so. Does not have to be perfect. Lay the webbing down. So my little straps holding my locking sliders, I think that's what these are called, are now done. So now we are going to place these on our straps. So you're gonna center them on your strap. So that'll go about there. Grab some more double-sided sticky tape to place it so it doesn't move. All right, this is what you should have. They look pretty even to me. And now what we're going to do is that we're going to be doing a box stitch. I am going to grab a Chaco pen, and this is not something you have to do if you trust yourself to do a box stitch without a guide. I need a guide. So I'm gonna do a little line there, and I'm doing Chaco so then that way it comes off. And I'm doing about 1/8 of an inch from each side, and it doesn't have to be perfect, it just gives me a guide while I'm sewing. Okay, so just like that. I don't know if you can even see it. Really hard to see, but it's there. Oh, there you can kind of see it there. So that's going to give me a guide of where I'm going to stitch my box stitch. So I'm going to do the same thing with the other one, and we're going to go to the machine and we're going to do a box stitch on this webbing to secure it to our strap. All right, these straps are now done. I did the box stitch. It's not the greatest box stitch I've ever done, but it works. I did bring down the box a little low, so it got close to my hardware, but that's okay. It's a kid's backpack. It doesn't have to be perfect. I've seen worse box stitches professionally done. So we're gonna set these straps aside. All right, for our next step, we're going to be assembling the back panel exterior. So here I have our strap anchors with our webbing already attached, the straps that we just made. We have the strap cover and my handle. So I'm gonna burn the end of my webbing to make sure it doesn't fray. And we're gonna grab a ruler and a marking tool. So first we're going to start with the back panel and the handle. With my ruler, I'm going to measure down from the center top of my panel. I'm going to measure down 2.5 inches. And this ruler is exactly 2.5 inches. And I'm going to center that right on my center mark there. And I'm going to draw a line. And on that line, we're going to make a center mark. So this is my center. If you do not have your centers marked, go ahead and do that. Kind of about there, about 1/4 inch or so away from this center line right here. So I'm going to get some double-sided sticky tape, and I'm going to put a little bit of double-sided sticky tape on each end. All right, so I have my tape, and I'm going to flip it over. Make sure my webbing isn't twisted. I'm placing my webbing right in the center, about 1/4 inch or so away from my center line. Just like that. And then I'm gonna place some clips there as well to keep it from moving. We're gonna take this to the machine and we're going to baste down right at these two ends our strap. All right, so I've gone ahead and basted down my strap. And now we're gonna, or handle, sorry, our handle, and now we're gonna grab our straps and we're going to flip them right side down. So you should be seeing the back side of your padded strap and your raw ends on this side and the connectors out the top. We're gonna be putting our straps, so I need to move this down so it's in the camera view, and we're gonna put our straps here. But what I'm gonna do is that I'm going to cut a small angle on both of these raw ends. And all I'm gonna do is grab a pair of scissors, and from the inside, so this is my inside, right? The inside, I'm going to start there, and I'm gonna cut just a slight angle, not a ton, like that. And then I'm gonna match it up with my other strap and do the same thing. So then we're going to lay our straps at a slight angle, and we're going to line it up with that line, and we're going to put our straps in place, and we're going to go baste it down our straps. And I'm going to use some double-sided sticky tape to keep my straps in place. All right, I got my double-sided sticky tape on there, and I'm going to line that up. All right, and now we're going to go baste our straps in place. All right, our straps are now basted on, and now grab your strap cover and flip it right side down, and some double-sided sticky tape, or you can glue it. All right, and now we're gonna flip this right side down, and we're gonna cover that strap. And I'm going to just eyeball this. You just center it on there, and we're gonna cut the excess off so it's nice and long so you have wiggle room. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. Now we're gonna take this to the machine, and we are going to top stitch along this edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then we're going to come around and then top stitch along the bottom edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, come back and stop, and then we're going to do another stitch from that at 1/4 inch, so you'll have 2 stitch lines on each side. All right, so the top stitching is now done. I got a little wonky right here at the bottom, mainly because of the end of this strap is like right there and it made my foot move, but that's okay. It's fine. It looks fine to me, or I'm happy with it. It doesn't bother me. So I'm gonna cut off the excess here. Okay, now that is done, and now we're going to grab our connectors, and we are gonna add those to the bottom of the bag. So I'm gonna make some room here, and the bottom of the bag is going to have a different connector. So I'm gonna attach my connectors right about where it starts to curve, and that's where I would put it on most backpacks, so that's what I'm gonna go with. And I'm gonna place a clip to hold them in place. All right, and now we're gonna take this to the machine and baste down our strap connectors. All right, our back panel is now almost complete. So now I'm going to grab the foam piece that goes to my back panel, and I'm going to go ahead and fuse that onto my back panel, and then we are going to set the back panel aside. All right, so now we're going to be working on our bottom gusset. So here I have the two bottom gusset pieces, my lining and the exterior, and my pockets. So we're going to work with our pockets first, so we're going to set this aside. And what we're going to do is that we have 4 pieces. We have an exterior and a lining. Mine are both the same for my exterior and lining. So we're going to join these right sides together, and I'm going to do both pockets at the same time. We're going to clip the top and bottom together, and we're going to take these to the machine, and we are going to sew the top edge and the bottom edge, and not our sides, just the bottom and the top, at a 3/8 seam allowance. And then what we're going to do after we do that, we are going to turn them right side out and top stitch on the top at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and at the bottom at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance on both pockets. So I went ahead and got the pockets sewn up. I did not hit the record button, so I do not have that portion recorded, but it is a pretty straightforward pocket. If you follow the directions on the pattern, you should be able to complete the pocket without that part of the footage. I'm sorry. Alrighty. So now let's grab our gusset, and I'm going to turn my gusset around because I do have a pattern that has to be a certain direction, and I want it to be like this when it wraps around the backpack. So I'm gonna face it this direction. So if you have a directional print, make sure that you are facing that in the direction that you want it to be. So so now grab your pockets, and you'll need a ruler, and from the short ends of our gusset we're going to measure 1.5 inches in from that edge. So right about there I have 1.5 inches, and I'm going to grab one of my pockets and the bigger side of the pocket. So this is the shorter end, this is the bigger end. I'm going to line that up right about there, and I'm going to center it the best I can, and I'm going to use my bottom edge to center it because it should be the same width of your gusset. So I'm going to place some clips to hold it there, and then I'm going to grab my ruler and do the same thing on the other side. So now we're going to take this to the machine, and we're going to sew down our pockets just on the short end of our pocket, not this top portion, which is the longer or bigger, I don't know what you want to call that. It's a little longer than the bottom. So we want to just sew the bottom portion at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance to attach it to our gusset. Alright, so I've gone ahead and sewn on my pockets on that bottom edge, and now what we're going to do is we're going to grab some clips, and we are going to match our edges, our raw edges on our pocket and the gusset, and place some clips. You're going to do this on both sides of your pocket, and what it does is that it creates this 3D effect where it like pops up your pocket just like that. So line it up with the raw edge on both sides. Alright, once you have gotten your pockets clipped, we're going to take this to the machine, and we are going to baste these raw edges and baste our pocket down to our gusset. All right, our pockets are now basted in place, and now we're going to set our gusset with our pockets aside. Now grab your longest zipper for your zipper gusset portion. So here I have some 1/8 inch double-sided sticky tape because that's how I'm going to attach my zipper to my gusset pieces. So here I have my 2 exterior pieces and 2 lining pieces. I'm going to set the lining aside for the moment and work with 1 exterior gusset piece. So you want to have your exterior gusset piece facing right side up, and I'm going to lay a row of double-sided sticky tape right on this side. And you don't have to use double-sided sticky tape here. You can just clip your zipper in place. Right, so I'm removing the backing off my double-sided sticky tape. And then I'm going to flip my zipper right side down. And I'm going to line that up with that edge, with that raw edge on my double-sided sticky tape, and line up the 2 raw edges of my zipper and exterior. And since your zipper is cut to the exact measurement of your gusset, you shouldn't have to find your centers, but if you want to find your centers, that's fine also. Once you have your zipper clipped or taped down to your gusset, you want to go and take this to the machine and baste the zipper on at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, now that our zipper is now basted, now we're going to grab one of our lining pieces, and you're going to flip that right side down, and you're going to sandwich that zipper in between the lining, and then you'll have your zipper and then your exterior. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to lay double-sided sticky tape across the top of my zipper here along the raw edge. Alright, I have my double-sided sticky tape on. I'm going to remove the backing. The backing is removed, and I'm going to lay my lining piece along that raw edge. Okay, I have my lining now in place, and now we're going to take this to the machine, and we're going to sew through all the layers at a 3/8 seam allowance. So remember, your zipper is sandwiched in between, so if you have a zipper foot, I would go ahead and switch that out for a zipper foot so you can get as close as possible with a 3/8 seam allowance. So once you've sewn on your lining, you want to press your lining away from your zipper and towards the back side of the exterior piece. And you want to press that seam really well. So if you have fabrics that you can iron, go ahead and do so to get a nice flat crisp edge to top stitch on. And then we're going to go to the machine, and we are going to top stitch along this seam at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Alright, I've gotten my top stitching done, and now we're going to do that again on the other side and add my exterior piece. I am making sure that my exterior piece matches up with my other exterior piece so my fabrics come together correctly. So I am going to flip it over this direction, right side down. All right, and once you have that done, if it's either taped down or clipped down, let's go ahead and take this to the machine and baste at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, once you've sewn on, basted on your exterior portion, you want to flip this over, and we're going to lay our lining right side down, right along that raw edge. And I'm gonna do my double-sided sticky tape. Okay, and then you're gonna lay your lining right along that edge. And then we're gonna take this to the machine, and we're going to sew this on at a 3/8 seam allowance. Okay, so now we're going to press our lining away and our exterior, and we are going to finger press this seam really well. All right, so I'm going to take this to the iron and give it a nice press, and then we're going to go to the machine and top stitch along this seam at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, so I have finished top stitching my zippered gusset, and here I have our bottom gusset piece with our pockets and our zippered gusset piece that we just finished. So what we are going to do is that we are going to lay our bottom gusset right side up. You want to take your zippered gusset piece and flip it right sides together, and you want to line up the two short raw ends and clip together. All right, once you've gotten that end clipped, go ahead and go to the machine, and we are going to stitch this down at a 3/8 seam allowance. All right, so we've sewn our gussets together on the one side with the 3/8 seam allowance, and now we're going to grab our bottom gusset lining piece, and we're going to flip that right side down, and we're going to lay that right on top of the side that we just finished stitching. And you want to make sure that you are looking at the side with the zipper facing up and not the side of your bottom gusset. You want to see your zipper on the top. So let's flip our bottom lining piece right side down, clip along this raw edge, and we're going to go sew this at a 3/8 seam allowance. All right, we've gotten that sewn, and now we're going to flip our bottom piece that we just sewed on away and press our two bottom pieces, our exterior and lining, together. And we are going to top stitch along this seam at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, that seam is now top stitched. And now we're going to take the zippered side of the gusset, and we are going to bring it right sides together. So we're laying this raw edge of our zippered gusset along with the last raw edge of our bottom gusset. So you should be seeing the back side of your zipper and your lining on your zippered gusset, and the top side, so the exterior side of your bottom gusset. So we're doing the same thing again, just on the other side. So we're gonna align the two raw edges up, clip, and then go sew at a 3/8 seam allowance. All right, once you've sewn that at a 3/8 seam allowance, now we're going to grab our gusset and flip it right side out. So this is what you should have, and now you're going to top stitch just like we did on the other side of our gusset, right along that seam at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, so now the other side is now top stitched, so you should have a circle. And now what we're going to do is that we're going to stitch along both sides of our raw edges on both sides, so along this edge and this edge all the way around the gusset at a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, just to baste it all together. So if you want, you can go ahead and clip this portion together. I'm not going to, but I can just show you real quick. Just clip it along all the way around. Then you're going to take this to the machine, and you're going to sew on this side all the way around the gusset, and sew on this side all the way around the gusset to baste everything together so it doesn't move. Right? So let's go do that at the machine. Our gusset has been sewn all the way around on both sides, and now our gusset is done, and we're going to set this aside and move on to the next step. Now I'm going to work on one of my interior panels, and on this interior panel I'm going to be doing the zippered pocket, but I am going to do the zippered pocket just a little differently. Here I have a strip of fabric for my overlay for my zippered pocket, which I'm going to use my contrasting fabric for. And then I have one of my interior lining pieces and my pocket pieces. So for my pocket overlay piece, I'm going to be using this ruler by Carolina Little Stitches. And there are these different little attachments that you can use to get different looks. And this is the one I'm going to be using today. So I'm going to grab a cutting mat and I will cut this shape out of my exterior fabric for my overlay. All right, so here I have a cutting mat, my fabric that I'm cutting my overlay out of, and my overlay template. And these templates, I will link below where you can get these. I did get them as a pre-order, so I'm not sure if these are going to become something that's like regular retail or not. But they are really nice, and I love that these ends are interchangeable. So yeah, so we're gonna try this out for the first time. I actually haven't used them yet, so I'm pretty excited to use them. So I have my rotary cutter, and what I did is that I just cut my fabric piece that I wanted to use for my overlay just a little bigger than the actual template itself. And then I'm just going to cut around that. Alright, so that was pretty easy, especially having this rotating mat. So there's my overlay piece. So this is a piece I'm going to be using as my overlay. And I'm going to go ahead and cut the center part out as well. And actually, I'm going to do it on the other side. And I'm going to line this up. And then with a pen, I'm going to trace out the center hole. All right, so like that. And then I'm going to use some scissors, cut down the center of it, and cut out the box. All right, so my overlay is now cut, and what I'm gonna do to keep this piece from fraying is that I'm gonna use some fray check all along the edges. Because this fabric, it is interfaced. I did interface it, but it still will fray. And I did not use a faux leather or cork or something that wouldn't fray because I wanted it to keep with the theming of the backpack. So I will be adding some fray check all on the edges, and hopefully that'll keep it from fraying. So that's what I'm gonna do. So my overlay has now dried nicely, and the edges are nice and firm. When you use fray check, it'll make things even firmer. It's kind of like a really liquidy glue in a way. So it basically seals all these edges so I won't get any fraying at all. So this is ready to go. So now we're going to move on and do our zippered pocket on our lining. And here I have my zipper, which I will set aside for a moment, and a ruler. And I've already marked my centers on my lining, and I'm gonna go 3.5 inches from the top, centered, and I'm gonna center my overlay at, looks like I'm gonna have 1 1/8 or so from each side. So I'm gonna use some double-sided sticky tape to place my overlay so it doesn't move while I'm sewing. So I'm just gonna place it here in the center so it stays out of my stitching and it also stays in place. I'll remove the backing and center my overlay. All right, so my overlay is now centered on my panel. And what I'm gonna do is that now we're gonna go to the sewing machine and we're going to sew around the overlay's perimeter. So on the outer portion only, we're gonna stitch this down onto our lining piece, and we're not going to stitch the center box yet. So we're just going to stitch around the perimeter of the overlay. All right, so I've stitched on my overlay and I've pulled my threads to the back. So now I'm going to tie these off, and then we are going to work on our pocket. All right, so once you've tied your threads to the back, go ahead and grab some scissors, and we are going to cut away the fabric from the center of this overlay. And what we want to do is that we want to cut away all of this from the back side, making sure we don't cut through our stitches. So I'm going to cut through here, making sure not to cut my stitches, not to cut my overlay. All right, so I've cut away my fabric away to just expose this center portion of the overlay. So when you turn it around, you do not see the fabric on this side. And we're gonna grab our zipper and our pocket pieces. And what we wanna do is grab one of our pocket pieces, and we're gonna lay it right side up, and the long end is going to be at the top, the short ends are gonna be on the side. So grab your zipper, and we're gonna lay it wrong side of the zipper to right side of the pocket. So you should see your zipper and zipper pull on this side. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab some double-sided sticky tape, and I am going to lay a strip of double-sided sticky tape across the top. And then I'm still going to go stitch this down. So I'm not just going to rely on the tape, I'm going to use the tape to help me place my zipper, keep it in place, and then I'm going to go sew it down. All right, I removed my backing, and now I'm going to lay this raw edge of my zipper along that top raw edge. And then what we're going to do is that we're going to go sew this down an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way across the top. All right, we have that sewn now at the top, and it should be attached right at the top, and you should have the bottom side of your zipper still raw. So now we're going to take our other side of our pocket piece. So we are going to grab this part of our zipper that is still open, and your pockets are going to go right sides together, and we're going to do the same thing and line up this raw edge of our zipper along this top raw edge of our pocket. All right, so I've taken the backing off, and now I'm going to lay the other raw end of my zipper. So your two pockets should be right sides together. You should be seeing the right side of your zipper, flipping it up, and you're gonna align that raw edge along with the top of the raw edge of your pocket piece. And then you're gonna take this to the machine and sew that an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance along the top edge. All right, so this is what you should have. If you open up your pocket to lay out like this, you should see the right side of your zipper with your zipper pull right here. And when you flip it around, you'll see the wrong side of your zipper and the right side of your pocket piece. So what you want to do next is that either you're going to use double-sided sticky tape to make sure this portion, because when you do it this way, it leaves this little, like your zipper is popped up just a little bit. And for this next step, to apply it to our panel to make our zipper pocket, you want this portion to be as flat as possible. So you could either use some double-sided sticky tape to lay across both of these seams, or you can stitch it down or iron it flat. So I'm going to stitch it down because that's just what I like to do. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this seam flat like this, and then I'm just going to top stitch along here. And what that does is that it helps lay this pocket nice and flat. All right, so our zipper is now nice and flat because I stitched it down flat. So whether you are using tape or ironed it flat, that's up to you. All right, so this is what you should have. Wrong side is on the right side of your panels, and the wrong side this side. So this is the side you want to be working with. And we're going to grab some double-sided sticky tape, and I'm going to lay some double-sided sticky tape on both raw ends of my zipper here. I guess it's kind of raw. I don't know. It's stitched down, so I guess not really, but I'm going to lay double-sided sticky tape along both edges of my zipper. Okay, so I have removed the backing off of my double-sided sticky tape. So I have sticky tape along here and here. And now I'm going to grab my panel that we have done our overlay on, And I am going to center my overlay over that zipper the best I can. Pull my zipper pull out of the way. All right, that looks good to me. And now what we're gonna do is that we're leaving our pocket open. So the way that I laid my panel on was with the pocket open. So one pocket piece is to the top, one pocket piece is to the bottom, and your zipper is in the middle. So this is exactly how you want to take it to the sewing machine. So this is what you should have. It's nice and open and flat. And we're going to take this to the sewing machine, making sure those pockets stay nice and open and flat. And we're going to stitch around this box all the way around to stitch our pocket in place. Alright, so I've stitched all the way around the box and I have pulled my threads to the back, tied them off, and now what we're going to do is that we're going to close our pocket up. So you're going to flip it around and you're going to bring your pocket piece down. And you're going to fold that, and it is going to be a little bit shorter than the other piece, and that's okay. Alright, so now I'm just going to put a few clips to hold it together. So now we're going to take this to the machine and you're going to sew by moving your panel piece out of the way. I'll move my double-sided sticky tape off and we're going to sew down the side, across the bottom, and back up the other side to close up our pocket. Alright, our pocket is now closed, and I don't know, I just kind of closed it up at whatever I thought was right. I don't know. I didn't measure or like how far away, or just try to keep it out of the seam allowances. Basically, when you sew up your pocket, it doesn't have to be some specific measurement, but I just kind of went halfway, I guess, and then made sure that my pocket is out of my seam allowances. So that's all you got to do. And I'm gonna trim down everything to about 1/4 inch. All right, here's your zippered pocket with an overlay. Really cute. All right, so now I'm gonna set this aside and we're gonna move. So now what you should have left is your other panel, your lining panel. And if you're following me, then you'll probably going to add a slip pocket to it, or whatever you want to add to it, that's fine. But in the pattern, nothing goes on this panel, and then you're ready to assemble the backpack. So if you're not going to do anything to this panel, you can fast forward. But I am going to add my slip pocket. So here I have my 2 pieces for my slip pocket. And I'm going to set my panel aside for a moment. And I'm going to go right sides together, lining up that top straight raw edge. And one is a little bigger than the other because I kind of rough cut it. So not a big deal. I can trim it down. So I'm going to place some clips. And then I'm going to sew this top edge at a 3/8 seam allowance. Alright, once you have sewn across the top, go ahead and flip these wrong sides together, right sides out, and press that seam nicely. And I'm going to take this to the iron to press the seam before I go and top stitch. So you want to press your seam really well, and then we're going to top stitch along this top edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Alright, so I've stitched this at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way across the top stitch, and then you could leave it like this and move on and add it to your panel, or do what I'm going to do, and I'm going to add this double fold, I think is what you call this, elastic double fold, I think, bias tape. And I'm going to fold this across the top to give it a nice trim as a contrasting color. So I'm going to just clip this in place. Alright, so now I'm going to take this to the machine and I'm going to stitch this on at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Alright, I've stitched on my trim piece and I caught it on the back, so make sure that it gets caught on the back as well. And now I'm going to trim off the excess. Alright, and now my slip pocket is ready to be attached to my panel. And I'm going to find the centers of my pocket. Line up my center with the center portion of my panel because I did mark my centers. All right, and then I'm gonna clip this in place. All right, and now I'm gonna take this to the machine and I'm gonna stitch, back stitching really well at the top of this pocket, and I'm gonna go all the way around the bottom and back up to the top, back stitching well right at this edge of the top of my pocket. All right, the pocket piece is now sewn on, and if you'd like, you can divide this pocket. I don't know, up to you. I'm not gonna divide it, so now we're ready to put all of our panel pieces together because we are binding our bag. So here I have my back exterior panel. This is what has our straps. And I'm gonna flip this wrong side up. And I'm going to attach my slip pocket panel to this back panel. And I'm going to find my centers and clip this in place, matching all of our raw ends. All right, so I have my, let's turn it this way so you can see it. I have my interior lining pocket, slip pocket panel now clipped to my back panel. And we're gonna go baste these two on. But first I'm going to clip my other two panels together and go take both of them to the machine and sew them together. So this is my other interior panel with my zippered pocket. I'm gonna move my zipper to the center, and that goes wrong sides together. And I'm attaching my zippered pocket to my front panel. My front panel is the one with the two front slip pockets. So that's what I'm attaching that panel to. And you can attach your panels to whichever panel you'd like. Just make sure that you are attaching them wrong sides together. So I'm gonna clip this in place. All right, so now my panels are clipped together. So this is the inside, that's the outside. This is my exterior front panel. And again, my back panel, I have my slip pocket interior panel attached to that. So now we're gonna go to the machine and we're gonna baste both of these panels along the edge that we just clipped, and then we'll be back. So both panels are now sewn together with the lining and exterior and lining. So when I did this one, I should have sewn it. It would have been easier for me to sew it with the exterior facing up so I can move everything as I was sewing, but I did it backwards and went like this. It still worked, but if you're doing it, sew with your exterior facing up, so then that way you can move all this stuff as you're sewing a lot easier than I did it. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna trim my panels down a little bit, because I know that my exterior panels are both the same exact size because I already trimmed those down to be the same exact size. So now I'm gonna trim down the panel where it's sticking out just a little bit, like right here, the interior panel, it's sticking out just a little bit. So, all right, my panels are now trimmed, and now what we're gonna do is that we're gonna grab our gusset as well, and we're gonna start putting our bag together. So for this portion, you will need your binding if you're going to be doing the binding method like I am, and then we will be done with our bag just about. So we're almost there. So I'm gonna put my binding aside for now. I have it over there, and I'm gonna find my centers on my gusset first. So I'm gonna match up where they come together, so where the bottom gusset and the top zipper gusset come together, I'm going to match them up there on both sides to find my centers. So go ahead and find your centers on all your pieces if you haven't already. I have found all of my centers, and now what we're going to do is that we're going to grab our gusset and we're going to flip it wrong side out. So the lining is what you should be seeing. On the inside should be your exterior. And now we're going to match up our centers first. So you should have your gusset laying like this. So I'm working with my front panel first. So my front panel is facing up. The exterior is facing up, And then I'm going to match this top corner with this top corner, and I'm going to staple that in place. I'll probably just clip it for now. I'm going to use staples. You can use clips to clip all the way around, or staple, whatever you'd like to do. I've even seen some people use double-sided sticky tape in this part. I have not done that before, so one day I will. Today I'm just gonna stick with the stapler. It has worked out for me, so I like using it. So let's put clips here at my centers first. So I'm just gonna start stapling away. So go ahead and get everything clipped, stapled, or taped, whatever works for you. The easiest way to do this is to do all your straight edges first, like this side, the top side, this side, and the bottom, and then ease in your corners. All right, so I've worked in all of my sides, my corners, except for this one side, so I can show you how I ease in my corners. So basically, when you're stapling in or clipping in, clips help a lot because you can maneuver them easier because you can unclip, unclip. It's easier than a staple, but I find staples easier in the end because they don't move. So there's good and bads about using staples and good and bad about using clips. So I went ahead and readjusted everything. Everything's fitting real nicely. All of my corners are nicely in. And so I was going to show you how I do this part. So when you're doing your flat sides and then you're leaving your corners, what you want to do is that you want to clip or staple up until it starts to want to turn. So right here, if you clip all the way to here, your fabric is basically starting to turn there. So you don't want to go all the way to there on either side. You want to give yourself some room. So then we want to tuck this in a bowl shape, just like that, and see how everything fits in real nicely. So just finagle the fabric a little bit, move it around, grab your staples or your clips, and then just keep going around, and everything should fit real nicely without it being too much of a fuss. So there's my corner, nicely around, but no puckers. So that is what you want. This is what you should see. If you see anywhere where you're getting a lot of puckering or it's not wanting to come together, make sure first that all your panels are the same size, because in the beginning we trimmed down our exterior panels to match. So as long as you are trimming your interior panels to match your exterior panels, those should be the same size, and as long as you made your gusset correctly, everything should fit very nicely. So what we're going to do now is that we're going to take this to the machine. But what I'm going to do is that I'm going to sew these two together using a 1/4 inch seam allowance or so. And then when we do the binding portion, it's at a 3/8. So she says in the pattern to sew this part at a 3/8. And then when you do your binding, you'd be doing a 3/8 as well. But the only reason why I don't want to do that is that just in case my binding doesn't cover my stitching, I'm going to start off with a 1/4 inch first. So it'll be inside of that 3/8 seam allowance. And then when I do my binding, I will stitch that on at a 3/8 seam allowance, if that makes sense. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go do this at about a 1/4 inch. Then we'll come back, put on the other side, and stitch that on as well. And then we'll do our binding. So I've gone ahead and stitched all the way around. I did have to remove some of my staples as I went because they were in my way. That was me not paying attention where I was putting my staples, so that was my bad. But you still have to remove them anyway, so either way, it was fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and start pulling out all these staples, and then we're gonna go and attach the other panel. And I did check to make sure everything was nicely stitched down, and it is. All of my corners are nice, no puckering, looks good. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove all of my staples right now, and then we're gonna come back and attach the other panel and sew that on. So I've removed all of my staples, and now I have my back panel. So you want to turn your back panel right side in, and you should be seeing your lining. And so we're going to do the same thing just like we did with the other panel. We're going to find our centers first, and you want to tuck in your grab handle, your straps, make sure everything stays out of the way so you're not sewing over that stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip these together so they're not like flopping around in there. There we go. And then my straps are inside my pockets, so I'm tucking my straps inside my pockets, which are the outside pockets, just to keep them out of the way, just like that. And my strap connectors are clipped together. So I'm gonna find all of my centers and clip my next panel in. So I've gone ahead and gotten both sides attached, and now it's binding time. We are so close to being done. Yay! And it's so cute. It's so cute. Anyway, I'm excited for my son to see it because he is a huge Minecraft fan, and this is for him. So I'm excited for him to see it, and he is going to try it on, and yeah. Anyway, so I'm thinking I'm going to use this double fold elastic. It's stretchy. So it's double fold elastic. It's what I had used for the top portion of my pocket. And I do have binding cut out of waterproof canvas. That's the same color, black, but I don't know. I think I'm going to just try this because I've never used it for binding before. And I know that there's people that do use it for that. So that's what I'm gonna do today. I'm gonna try this instead of using my waterproof canvas that I had already cut out. And what's nice about this is that it already like folds in half for you. See, there's like a half fold right there. Yeah, so it's, I don't know, it's pretty nice. So we're gonna give it a try. Never sewn this. I've never used this as binding before, so I'm going to give it a try. And so here I am going to use clips because I'm not going to staple on my binding. And I've already got my curves sewn, so this will be pretty easy to just clip in place, sew it on, and be done. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clip all the way around. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of starting right at the top here. I'm going to go all the way around. And then when I get to the top, I'm going to fold the two raw ends underneath and then clip it there, right there at the center, so the raw ends are not exposed. So I've reached the end here, and now I'm going to cut that off. And what I'm going to do is that I'll remove some clips, fold this under, just like that, and then fold this side under, and then kind of overlap them. Maybe that's too much. So I'm going to fold this side under. This is what I'm going to do. Fold that side under, place a clip, and then I'm going to cut this just a little bit shorter. And then I'm going to just slide this underneath, because then it gets a little bulky folding both sides. So just like that. And now we're going to take this to the machine and we're going to sew our binding on at a 3/8 seam allowance. So all the way around. And that might be right along this edge right here. And then we will come back and do it again on the other side. All right. Alright, so we've got the binding on. Doesn't look too bad. I think it looks pretty good. So now I'm going to add on the other side and I'm going to fast forward through this process, okay? Alright, our clips are on and now we're going to go to the machine and get this binding sewn on and we are almost done. So binding is now done. Now we are ready to flip our bag right side out. I will say the binding that I chose to use is double-sided elastic. I like it and I don't like it. The reasons why I like it is because it goes around corners nicely. So that is nice. I like that part. What I don't like about it is that it is super stretchy. That part, I wasn't crazy about. It turned out fine. It's just I had a lot of spots where I had to like slow down and make sure it was underneath the needle and like on the other side so it would catch both sides. But other than that, I mean, it worked out pretty good. I do still like the waterproof canvas as binding best. This is still, I haven't used anything else but waterproof canvas for binding before, so that's why I thought I'd try the double fold elastic. It turned out okay, so if that's all you have, it does work. Just gotta make sure that it stays underneath the needle on the other side. You have to do the same with waterproof canvas as well, but it doesn't have that stretchy nature like the double-sided or double fold elastic tape does. So, you know, if I have it and it matches, I'll use it, but the waterproof canvas, still my favorite. All right, so let's turn our bag right side out. So I have gotten all my corners poked out. And I think it looks super cute. It's really hard to see in the camera because it is quite large. Or larger than, you know, my view is. So here it is. It looks super cute. There's my pockets. The other pocket. The front pockets are really cute. All right. Now let's finish up these straps. So, kind of wish I would have put a little more of an interfacing on this bottom gusset, but that's okay. I think it'll be fine. The bag he's using now is literally no structure. So we'll come up through the bottom. Nope, it needs to come up through this part right here. So make sure it's nice and straight. Come up through the bottom on the other side of that bar. So you want to go up over that, well, up from underneath and then over the bar and back down. Go around that piece of webbing. or that bar. Let's do the other side. So now to figure out how I want to finish these ends. So you can finish these ends however you'd like. You can fold them under twice like this and sew across the top, or you can do a piece of vinyl or cork or whatever you're working with over the raw end and sew that across on there to cover up the end. So I've decided to go ahead and just fold these under, and I'm just going to fold twice, and then that will encase that raw end of my webbing and it won't fray, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to sew right across this, and then we are going to be done. So I've gone ahead and sewn, sorry, I've got bright light coming in through my window. So I've sewn across the bottom here to encase that raw end on my webbing, and we are now done. I would prefer if the thread matched the lime green, but I don't have lime green thread, so black will do. I'm pretty sure my son won't care. All right, so here's the bag, and it looks so cute. Yay, we're done. I would like to say thank you to T over at ISY SEW for allowing me to make this beautiful bag and make a tutorial for it. I hope I did your bag some justice. I love it, and my son absolutely loves it. He's a big Minecraft fan, and he cannot wait to wear his new bag to school. I will have links down below where I got the fabric. It was a pre-order. I waited 8 weeks, 9, it was a little while for it, but it is still available on pre-order, so if you want it, you can get it. Same with the lining fabric. It was all together to match. It's a coordinate. So I will link the links down below where I got everything, including the webbing to match. Thanks for being here. Please remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and give the video a like, and I'll see you next time. Bye.